Hello everybody and welcome to a bonus video podcast from MinnMax. MinnMax is a place about games, friends, and getting better. I'm Ben Hansen. Thank you for being here. This is a special one. This is the culmination of something we call the Game Championship, where everybody who supported us on Patreon at the $50 tier became a game champion and could choose any game under the sun, and we would officially declare them the champion of that game on Twitter, on the MinnMax Show podcast, and in the description of every MinnMax video and podcast. Then, after months of doing that, we took all those games, anyone could just take them, from all over the world that everybody suggested, and we made a whole bracket on Twitter, and there was a battle, randomized bracket. There was a battle going through to figure out which was the last game standing, which game we should create content about, and at the end of the day, it was Persona 5 Royal. Ended up taking it all. That is the game that people wanted us to make content about more than anything else. So, we found the person, we were able to track it, found the person who chose Persona 5 Royal as the game that is officially the game champion of Persona 5 Royal, and their name was Thomas. So we reached out to Thomas and invited them to join us for this larger discussion about the best things about Persona 5 Royal. So thank you so much for watching this video and supporting MinnMax on Patreon. And if you want to become the official game champion of any game under the sun, Jetmoto 2, Chibi Robo, there's plenty of games that aren't taken. You can go to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, jump in there at the $50 tier, or just jump up for 1 month up to that tier. Choose a game, lock it in, you'll be in the running to create content with us in the future for the next round of the Game Championship. So we hope you enjoyed this fun little activity. And now, without further ado, here are some very wise people, very wise contributors from MinnMax, and Thomas. Thanks so much, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the bonus content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special discussion of Persona 5 Royal. I am your host, Joe Juba. I am joined by fellow MinnMax contributors, Ana Diaz.
Hello.
Kelsey Lewin.
Hi, that's me.
And we have with us a very special guest today. We have Thomas Bourne. Hello, Thomas.
I'm very excited about this. I'm happy Persona 5 won the poll. I have to admit, I wasn't keeping up too closely with the polls, because oftentimes polls just kind of like go through me when I'm on Twitter.
Yeah.
But it was very fun to get that email from Ben telling me what's going on. And yeah.
Well,
it's a good one.
Yeah, well, and especially knowing the way those MinnMax polls can go, they can go like up and down, dead heat. Like they can be. I understand the desire to maybe just unplug a little bit and see how things go.
Yeah.
So we are here to talk about all things Persona 5. So I think it'd be fun to just start out a little bit. Not to get all dramatic about it, but like I want to talk a little bit about how we were all introduced to Persona 5. What's your Kelsey, what's your Persona 5 journey?
Well, I'm a Persona fan in general. Starting with 3. I haven't gone back further than that, but it was just kind of a no-brainer for me when that was announced because I loved 3 so much, I loved 4 so much, and surely 5 was going to be awesome too.
Yeah, what about you, Ana?
So my first Persona game was Persona 5 Royal, and like I started playing it beginning of pandemic. Actually, it was one of the first games that I talked about when I started recording with MinnMax. So very like special memories of that game.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you gone back to check out any of the previous Persona games since?
Well, so I spend a lot of time, like hanging out on Discord. So I've seen my friends. One of my friends, I watched them play Persona 4 Golden when it came to PC. So I've seen like bits and pieces of that, it's kind of a nice way to experience it because it's so long. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take like an hour and like fold my laundry as my friend plays Persona 4 Golden, because they're long games. Obviously, I don't need to tell any of you that.
Yeah, but there's also an element there. Like I think that they are surprisingly watchable games too. Like if you were to break down percentages of how much time in Persona you spend watching versus actively playing, I think that ratio is a little skewed, especially compared to other RPGs. So, and Thomas, how about yourself? Like, what inspired the choice of this particular game for the poll in the first place? Why Persona 5 and not I don't know, 4 or another game entirely? What's the magic for you here?
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't played too many JRPGs in general. The first few I ever beat were like Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga and Paper Mario 2. And like a few Pokemon games, and then Chrono Trigger and Earthbound are really it for me with JRPGs.
You're really going in on the deep end here with Persona 5 then.
Yeah, so basically I was interviewing for jobs and like putting off job search for the better part of the last year. And I was pretty miserable at my last job. And so like evenings always felt like I kind of should have been doing something in relation to finding a job.
Yeah.
So when I had my last interview with my current place, there was kind of a weight lifted off of me because I had an inkling I'd get it. And it was like 2 p.m. on a weekday. And I was like, I have a lot of time in front of me. I'm just going to pull up Persona 5 Royal and play through it. Because I bought it on a PSN sale. It was like $20 one day. And I was like, I'll play that someday, knowing I probably wouldn't. And then honestly, like it's kind of been one of those games that just has really always interested me, especially like when Anna was talking about it on MinnMax 2 years ago. Like I just remember like there was a lot there and clearly it made an impact, you know? And so I wanted to play something that would make an impact, and I beat the whole thing in 3 weeks, and
wow,
it was...
That's really impressive.
I mean, you're treating it like a job at that point, right? You're putting in about 35 hours a week or so on it?
I did the math one day, and it was a bad idea. But...
I think that sounds like a great idea. Like, I want to do that this week, honestly. I'm like, what if I just abandon everything else and just play Persona? Sorry, just call it. I'm sick. Anyway.
I mean, there is something about Persona 5 and just like the way it like creates a familiar but comfortable world around you, right? And I mean, beyond just the desire of like, oh man, it'd be just nice to unplug and like play a video game for a while. There's something specifically attractive, I think, about the world of Persona 5.
It's very comfortable, and like there's scary stuff in it because you're traveling through these consciousnesses basically, and but like the around town stuff is just so you're just at home immediately, and then Beneath the Mask is playing in the cafe, and it's just man. Is that the I'm a Shapeshifter song? Yeah, that everyone gets stuck in their head no matter what. Yeah. Okay. I got wrapped into Persona 5 because I reviewed it back when I was at Game Informer. And I started the series like Kelsey started with 3 and went back and played some of those earlier ones and never quite finished them. But yeah, 3 and 4 were the big ones. And then when 5 came out, I did a similar thing to Thomas because, there's a review embargo to hit. So I basically played it for 3 weeks straight, except I had to take a little break in the middle there because I was also reviewing Mass Effect Andromeda, which was coming out around the same time. So it's like I played about 2/3 of Persona, then played all of Mass Effect, and then went back to Persona to get everything done on deadline. But
did they give you a long enough lead time on that to actually finish Persona before the deadline?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I can't speak to how they do it these days, but back then anyway, Atlas was pretty good about getting things, because so many Atlas games are just long games, right? So they were pretty good about getting things to us, 4 to 6 sometimes. I think it was almost 6 weeks in advance with Persona. So
wow, game company that does it okay.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I think in those cases too, it almost only ever happens with games that are Japanese games, like coming stateside, because everything is effectively done. There are no more patches to be made or anything. It's been translated and just kind of waiting to release, right? I feel like that never happens with Western games to have them like done that early. So anyway, yeah, so that's my story. I think the way we want to go on from here is all of us, before we got on camera here, we set up a little list of 3 things that we love about Persona 5 that we want to talk about. And I think we'll just sort of go down the horn, have everyone share their stuff. But if someone says your thing, that's fine. We'll just have the conversation about that thing then. And, we'll see where it takes us. I don't want to be bound by only talking about things on our lists or all that stuff. But Thomas, you want to kick us off with your thing number 1?
I have a really, really, really nerdy one here, but I actually think I'm gonna not use it because it's
what? No, we can start with nerdy.
I think nerdy is best.
That's better. I mean, of course we're gonna talk about the music and stuff, but like let's get into the weird stuff.
I think you fully committed yourself to it.
Okay, fair. So, in Royal, sorry to spoil Royal for Kelsey, but
hold on, yeah. Let's stop. Let's hit pause because let me say, we're going to talk like everything's on the table. Persona 5, Persona 5 Royal, ending stuff, unique content in Royal. We're going to talk about all that. So if that is not a thing that you want to have spoiled for you, thank you for, sitting with us so far, but I'm sorry for wasting your time because you may want to bounce out. Okay, with that being said, if you're okay with spoilers, Thomas, please continue.
All right, so basically the final dungeon in the game, you are going into the school counselor's consciousness. I'm not going to mess that up every time. And then basically he has 2 persona because like you and your party members, his persona evolves at one point. And his first persona is called Azathoth, which is a Lovecraftian mythology kind of a deal. I think that's where it comes from. But basically, it's the ancestor of all deities, but it's too horrible to even be described, according to the origins of the character Azathoth. So he's like an all-powerful demon, essentially. And then when you destroy him, he merges with the counselor's like dungeon area, and then becomes Adam Kadmon, which is the Kabbalah interpretation of Adam, which differs from Adam of Christianity because it's basically untainted by the world around it. So it's like infinite good potential. So it's it's interesting that you basically have like a pure, dark, chaotic energy that then merges with his brain to then become pure light, essentially. And so it's super dorky that like I read so much about this when I was super into the game, and I'm not great at describing it, but essentially, it just kind of gets into the mythology that these things are pulled from, like Kabbalah and Lovecraft stuff and Greek gods. Like they just kind of grab from everywhere and mix them in interesting ways. And I had no idea all that was in Persona, and like I also didn't know that a lot of the monsters you encounter are from a game from 1992 or whatever. Like, so I just got really into the like dorky reading about the origins of everything side, and so it's a long way to say, but that's my number 3.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of people don't realize about the Persona series, because I think you can literally miss it if you play like 95% of a game and don't actually finish it, is like they always have this really... The endings always have some really crazy shit like that. Yeah. Just really like, wow, where did that come from? I thought I was in high school and, was doing this vigilante stuff or solving a murder or whatever. Like, but then it gets really wild at the end. So stick with a Persona game all the way through.
Yeah,
seriously.
Especially, at that point, if you've played that much of it, you may as well see it to the end of the final dungeon, because there is some cosmic stuff that's inevitably going to go down. But I also like that. I like Thomas's point because that's something I remember when I first played. It must have been Persona 3. I was a little bit shocked at the portrayal of like so much Christian mythology in it, and was like, ooh, I'm surprised that this isn't like offending more people or something. And then the more you play, the more you realize that it's very much like it's a very equal opportunity game in terms of the mythologies that it borrows from, right? It's got yeah, like it's got angels and stuff from Christianity, but yeah, then it has like even Lovecraftian like fictional mythology and stuff like that. It's just this kind of delightful grab bag that also gives you that moment of like, I'm trying to think of a good example. There are like times when there are names of creatures that I only know from Persona, but then I see a reference to like oh, Baphomet or something like that. It's like, oh, I guess that, yeah, of course it makes sense that's a real thing. And yeah, to draw that connection, I think is really cool. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's something that, I mean, I personally really love about Persona is like the way that the game is just like, so it's like intimidatingly large, and like the mythology is intimidatingly large, excuse me. And it's like, I think what's cool is like also just like all the kind of like cultural references it's bringing in just feels like so massive, and like just does make it like a world that you can just spend a lot of time in. So it's like from, you know, like the later references that you researched, even to just like the visual references of kind of like the more pop arty like graphics of the game, or like the anime influence, or like even in Yusuke's like mission, you have like a bunch of like different like art forms, like literally being referenced like in a digital art. Arguably what is a piece of digital art itself is just like so fun. Like, I don't know. It's like, they really don't, you know, it's nice because it's something that I just, not to nerd out, like love about video games is like, there's not as many rules here, you know? So it's like, why not just like bring all these things together and, you know, have high school teenagers running through it all.
Yeah, so that actually ties into like what I have as number 3 on my list that I think a lot of people bring up as like maybe something about the game that is intimidating. But one of the things that I like about it is its size, just the pure length of it. And I think that has a lot to do for me with the stuff that we've been talking about already, with like, that's because they really carve out enough space for them to realize these sort of grand ambitions that they've got going, right? The sort of mythological incorporation of all this stuff, and being able to bring together all of these like weird elements, like Anna was saying, like, yeah, it's a high school simulation, but it's also all of these other things folded into that. And there's just no way, I just don't think there's any way to do that successfully in a 40 or 50 or 60 hour RPG. And even those are getting on the long end, you know, but for me anyway, one of the big things I remember when I played the original one, I actually haven't finished Royal, but that's okay, is like the sense at the end of it of just this like huge journey. And I think the size, like the length of it, 100 hours is about what I put into it. Is I think something about that size really lets the pacing and the storytelling be a slow burn, so it feels a lot more natural, and it feels like you're getting a chance to get to know the characters. You're getting familiar with the locations. You're like, you sort of become a resident of the world in a way that in a way that other RPGs don't really let you, because you're being shuffled off from one location to the next, one dungeon to the next, one quest giver to the next. And, you know, I think that scope and ambition, for me anyway, is one of my favorite parts of this game.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree, because it's so interesting, because like one way to look at it is that it's really long game, and that's like kind of hard. But I think that all of those elements, like the hangouts and the like being, you know, like hanging around the city and like going to class, doing all these things, like lend a really leisurely feel to the world. That like, yeah, it's just like, it feels like the game is holding out a cup of coffee and saying like, hey, come, like, just take a seat, you know, and like spend some time here. And it just makes like all of the other harder stuff too, I think, more approachable.
Well, I think by the end, to your point, Joe, like you really just care about these characters, because you've spent that much time on this journey and learned even the small details, you know, like just going to your job or whatever, and spending time and seeing people hanging out in this area or whatever. It's you end up actually caring about what happens at the end of this RPG in a way that isn't true for a lot of shorter ones.
Yeah. Well, and even at the ending, when it's time to say goodbye to all those people, like it's not necessarily that the writing or the events of the end of the game are especially powerful outside of the fact that that it's you saying goodbye, right? That it's you saying goodbye to these people and these places that you've become so familiar with. And I think like that's a really difficult thing to pull off. But anyway, yeah. So there we go. Big size. I remember Ben Hansen was always joking that no one has ever even finished Persona 5 and that anyone who says they have is a liar. But here we have, we can all talk about the ending. We are 4 people proof who have finished the game.
But not Royal. So.
Well, oh yeah, I guess that's true. And realistically, I don't know. I mean, Kelsey, are you ever gonna go? Do you think you're realistically gonna go finish Royal at some point?
No, I mean, if I could like New Game Plus it and kind of speed through it a little bit more, that maybe. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did that with Persona 3 Portable. I played through the regular route, and then there's a female protagonist route, just like in Royal. And I did that, but only because it was like New Game Plus, and it cut my time that I had to play the game in like a third. So yeah, it's fine.
I started it up. I started up Royal a couple months ago because I was in the mood, and I got I played for like 2 hours, and it's still that sense of like I have not even scratched the surface of this game at this point. So I think I have to move on to something else. We'll see. Maybe I'll go back to it someday. So Kelsey, what's number 3 on your list? What's what you love?
One of the things I really love about this game is just how freaking detailed Tokyo is. Just this world is so detailed in a way that I mean, I think in a lot of cases it is also accurate, but mostly it just feels very alive and real, and each of the different areas you go to feel very different, in the same way that different areas of a real city would feel. And it just feels very very well thought out, very intentional. Every bar they put in and every restaurant, all of them feel like they really belong in that area, and they're all really beautiful.
Yeah. Have you been to Tokyo, Kelsey? Yes, right? No?
I haven't. I know everyone thinks I have, but I have not yet.
All right. I mean, is that on the bucket list at some point?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I've like had plans to go several times now, and one was pandemic canceled, and there've been roadblocks, but I'll get there eventually.
Thomas, Anna, have either of you been?
No. Again, hopefully soon, but the past 3 years of travel have sort of been
complicated for some reason.
Nothing going on.
If you've been to Tokyo?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can speak to the accuracy of it. I mean, I can only listen to other people saying like, wow, it's really accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the same thing. What's interesting to me is, I mean, apart from some actual locations, right? Like, the guy that you talk to outside of the Shibuya station, that's Persona 5, right? I'm not getting confused there. The politician?
Yeah, no, that's
okay.
That's Persona.
Okay. Yeah. Like that is like a real authentic place. But there are a lot of things there that I think kind of lean on some cultural knowledge and familiarity that are just something that like a modern tourist might not have there. Like the specific era that a lot of the design sensibilities, specifically of the cafe and some of the palaces, are drawn from. Is like, if you weren't in Japan in the 80s, it's like a style that doesn't necessarily exist anymore, but it's sort of a callback or stylized representation, Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I mean, the parts that are supposed to be real things that I have seen, yeah, they look realistic. I think that's a good point. So, what about you, Anna? What's yours?
So my first, third.
Let's.
One
I'm
of
not
them.
putting these in
One
any
of
order.
them. Yeah.
so-
Okay. Cool. So mine was the UX and UI, the UI of the game. So just because I don't know. At first I was like, what's going on? I don't like it's so hard because I think Persona is really there is this challenge. I understand there needs to be a need for very usable, very clear AI or UI. But it was just such this wonderful experience of being oh yeah, every game I've ever played has tried semi-approach this the same way. And now this game is just what if we didn't do that? So I love the aggressively stylized menu system in it.
Yeah, when it's you press start and there's just some flashy silhouettes as everything sort of interlocks into place. And is all that the same in Royal as I suppose?
The font is different because they were translating it into more languages, so they had to support different kinds of Latin characters. So they used a font that supports that.
Interesting.
But other than that, I dipped into regular Persona 5 to get a save file to unlock some weird DLC that you get if you have a Persona 5 save file, because I never played the original. So the font is different, and I noticed that on a YouTube video I watched, but everything else is pretty close.
Interesting. Also, I think it's funny. I think we sort of have impeccable timing recording this because I think Persona 5 just left the PlayStation Plus collection.
Yes, it did.
Today. So now we're going to get everyone all hyped up for Persona, and it's a little harder to play. At least harder to play.
Well, Atlas is going to love us then because we're driving real money to the...
Exactly.
You're
if
welcome.
You got to buy it. Yeah, for sure.
Royal, though, does hit PlayStation sales pretty much every month. You can find it at $20 all the time. I made one of my coworkers buy it. It's pretty easy to get that game cheaper than $60.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, Thomas, what's the next one on your list? Wait, did we hit everyone? Everyone did one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I don't want to leave anyone out here. Okay.
Oh, we left Ben out.
Oh no, the Black Void.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
How does anyone ever play Persona? It's too long. There we go.
I have one more that's actually from the ending, but it's from the 5 ending, not the Royal ending, so we should all be familiar.
Okay, this is allowed.
Basically, when you're having that showdown with Akechi right at the end in the police station, and he shoots you in the head, and you think Joker's dead, and at first I thought I got a bad ending to the game, because I know there's basically 10 bad endings you can get, so I thought I just didn't collect something or whatever, and it spends 3 or 4 minutes of cutscene trying to build up all this tension that your character's dead and you have no idea what's really going on, and then Ryuji sees the news on TV and he just goes, "We got him." It is one of the greatest moments I've ever experienced in a game or movie or TV show. It is just, that hit me so hard because I realized they kind of Ocean's 11'd you at that moment. And you're like, oh, that's really different from how I thought this was going.
Yeah. So I didn't have that specific moment, but that was the next thing on my list too, about the ending, is just how there are so many JRPGs that as you near the finish line, they kind of spiral out of control, and they go into a lot of areas that I don't know, maybe get a little too philosophical for me, or ambiguous, or whatever. And I love the Ocean's 11 reference, had not occurred to me, but that is perfect. There's so much about the end of that game that is just delivered in a clear cinematic fashion to really make that whole, the final few hours in total are just because of moments like that are just cathartic. They just pay off in a way that whenever I get towards the end of a JRPG, I always sort of brace myself a little bit for things to get stupid, you know? And that didn't happen for me in this one. So, yeah.
Yeah, it ends strong. And I mean, Ryuji could have made the list on his own for so many reasons, but yeah, that moment. I mean, there's a lot in there. There's a ton of other moments that stick out, but that one I think is the one where I was just like, oh. And like you said, so many games just kind of peter off at the end, and this one, it just kind of keeps hitting you with enough new stuff throughout that it never gets boring or tedious, really.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Kelsey? What's the next one on your list?
Sorry. The next one on my list is this is going to sound a little weird. I think it only is going to make sense to people who have played other Persona games. But so Joe, maybe you can relate to this. I really appreciate the dungeons in this game. They are not perfect, but
it's surprising.
They are so many leaps and bounds better than what we had in the past with Persona dungeons. And I mean, I was fine with them. Persona 3 is one of my favorite games of all time. But it's not in any way, shape, or form an interesting dungeon experience. And I think that, like, they clearly took that to heart in developing this game, that they were at least going to give you an interesting dungeon experience, if not an always flawless one. It at least really built on, just so before, if you haven't played other Persona games, they're all just kind of these procedurally generated nonsense dungeons, and they really, there's nothing to them. Like, you go in there to just simply progress to the next thing. And Persona 5 made actual curated dungeon experiences where they want you to have, they've built an experience for you. They're not just kind of like, yeah, I don't know, get in there and figure it out, get to the top. Yeah. So I really appreciate just that that's something that they recognized as like a quality of life change. And for that reason, I think it's really difficult for Thomas, you and Anna, if you ever want to go back and play those other Persona games, I think it's going to be kind of hard. I think it's hard to go back to those older ones after having played like a curated dungeon experience.
I did start Persona 4 Golden not too long ago. I had a Vita TV for like years that I never touched, and finally I was like, I'm just going to buy it and play it. And I got basically through the first dungeon, which again, is just pure randomly generated stuff. And I was really having a good time with the characters and everything. And then I died and lost 3 or 4 hours of progress. And I was like, and I haven't gone back since. And there's more friction there for sure than there is in 5.
Yeah, I'm curious, Anna. You had a reaction when Kelsey said that the dungeons.
Because I honestly because I haven't played other Persona games. The dungeons in Persona 5 Royal are probably my least favorite thing to do, like in the game, I would say, because they are so long and they're hard to navigate. And like, there are some things that are just like kind of weird, like the puzzles aren't super clear. Like in Futaba's palace, there's like some stuff going on where I'm like what's happening here? Like, I guess I have to go look up a guide, but then it's kind of hard to look up a guide because, like, the palace is so big. And it is just like, maybe because it's like, I've grown up with so many like good games that are so straightforward and also just don't have as large of palaces, to be honest, or like dungeons, to be honest. And so it's like, oh yeah, like, this is way bigger than like what I was used to playing, like in Zelda games as a kid, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting because my understanding of Persona 5 Royal is that that's even an improvement over the original. They added an element. there's like in Royal, there's a little more verticality because you have that grappling hook that you can sort of, there's more sort of there's more dimension to the dungeons than there was before. But yeah, I would be interested in your thoughts if you ever go back to Persona 3 or 4, because they are basically just like long square hallways that you're running down that are, even in Persona 4, it's all sort of, procedurally generated stuff that you just sort of go through to like grind levels and things like that. So
yeah, well, maybe that wouldn't be so bad. Like, I think I have a much higher tolerance for grind than like the average player. But like, I think for me, like, I'm bad at reading maps. And so I was bad at playing through the Persona dungeons because I'm like, I don't know, like Morgana's like pissed at me. We're like hustling. I'm like, come on, like I'm trying to take like my angry cat child with me, like all over this place. So like, you don't know where you're going, and I'm like, no, you're right. Like I don't. Anyways, like,
let's talk a little more about your angry cat child.
Oh no.
Did Morgana make your list of things you love?
No, that was a joke. Okay, some context.
Oh, okay.
I think Morgana's really annoying.
That's okay. That's the more common thing. So for context, in like the Slack group when we were planning this, Anna said that her top 3 were all going to be Morgana, and I was like genuinely interested because I was like, mostly I just hear people complain about Morgana. You really like Morgana, huh? Let's unpack this. But no,
Yeah.
okay, it's just
No, that was just me being a little fucky. I don't know if I can say that, but Ben's not here.
Ben will bleep it out. It's fine.
Yeah.
More editing for him.
Joe leans down to take a timestamp.
Yeah, I'm just making note of that. So, Thomas, what's your verdict on Morgana? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
It's funny. I was never. It just kind of seemed like the generic like assistant character to me. I was never like into Morgana or against Morgana. I had much stronger feelings about pretty much every other character. There is an amazing bit in Royal when you get to the 3rd semester where Morgana briefly gets his wish and turns into a human boy.
I saw some concept art of that and was like, that looks like that's what's happening there for sure.
And at first he's just credited as Dreamy Boy because Joker doesn't know who he is yet. And I really liked kind of the way Morgana's story wraps up, kind of accepting who he is and realizing his place in the world. But I found his repetitive, like, I'm not a cat. Like, that's what really got to me and annoyed me. I also know that in the original version, there's a lot more Morgana bothering you to go to sleep. They cut way back on that.
They cut some of that out?
He still does it on, like, event days, but on the average first several evenings, it's not.
I love how I'm like, I don't like Morgana. I don't like the dungeons. And Thomas is like, oh, actually, so it's way better in Royal. So,
again, I barely touched the original. I just was curious, so I read about like how it was different and what I could have gone through if I played the original.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's as someone who only played the original, when they were rolling out the release of Persona 5 Royal, I was really impressed at the list of things that they were addressing, because so many of them were like direct responses to the criticisms that I and a lot of other players had about it, right? Things like, okay, these dungeons they're better than they were, but they're still not great. So then it's like, okay, well, let's see what we can do to add some verticality there. And that stuff about, Morgana just telling you to sleep. I mean, it became a meme, right? Everyone's just sort of joking about, and they're okay. Let's dial that stuff down a little bit too. I think that they did some real smart, accommodations there and responses to things that maybe weren't perfect the first time around. It kind of makes me wonder, like, at what point are you a sucker for playing the first version of a Persona game that comes out? Right? Like,
you're right, because they like all do this.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I should have seen it coming. I know the song says you'll never see it coming, but I should have seen it coming.
Yeah, because it's like, there's Fess for Persona 3, Golden for 4, and now Royal for 5. And like, you never hear anyone, I feel like no one anymore is talking about Persona 4. It's always Persona 4 Golden is the one they're talking about, right?
A lot of that's to do with the fact that it's on Steam and original Persona 4 is just on PS2.
That's true.
But that's definitely true. And there's actually Persona 3 Portable is actually super different from the original 2 versions of 3. So
Yeah.
Still really good though.
There's two different like better versions to play for 3.
Yeah.
Unpopular opinion that probably doesn't belong in this discussion, but I don't care. I like Persona 3 Portable better. I don't think that I need to actually be the one controlling the character running around school. I'm happy to point and click on it. It works. It's fine.
I replayed Persona 3 a few years ago and faced that dilemma of like, do I play FES or do I play Portable? And it was that was the breaking point for me. It was like, I can't not walk around these zones.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Just click on it.
That's not what I'm there for. Okay, so Anna, you do not want to have Morgana as one of the things you love about this game.
No, but I actually hate Morgana. I just want to be clear. I don't want to come on here and be like, yeah, Ana Diaz was like flaming Morgana. I don't think I hate Morgana as much as everyone else does. Okay, I just need to get that. I just needed to exercise that thought from my brain.
Okay. Apology accepted for all of the wrongs that you inflicted upon Morgana just now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
So now you have to say something good about the game in return.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite things about this game, and it's like very non-controversial, very obvious, but the music. And like I think like specifically like the first time Life Will Change like started like that guitar line started playing, and like you send your first calling card and you just feel like so like glamorous and cool and full of like hope during like this really shitty plot. I'm sorry, this really not like really dark, really hard, traumatic plot line, you know? And so it really comes at like this pivotal moment, and like there's just so many tracks obviously that like I adore in this game, and like everyone in my life like whether they know it or not has listened to the Persona 5 soundtrack.
I love that concept of like forcing the music you love even subtly on the people around you.
Yeah, well, because sometimes I'll like play it when I'm driving around or play it in the background while I'm cooking or whatever. So it's like, okay, you know, like people might not know what it's from, but that's, you know, it's always there.
Yeah,
I'm very lucky that I have a video game store that I can just subject everybody to whatever video game music I'm into at the time. So
it sounds definitely like a literal dream.
Yeah, it's great. There's been a lot of Persona music that people have to listen to.
What do you think is the most played soundtrack in your game store?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Maybe like, honestly, it might be like Super Mario 64, like Dire Docks and that kind of thing comes up a lot. I don't play a lot of like just soundtrack straight all the way through though. It's usually like mix of stuff.
Okay. So it's not like if you go into some hipster record store and they're trying to play the most obscure thing possible. That's sort of a flex. You're like, we want people to feel happy and video gamey in this store, so we're going to play some Mario stuff.
I mean, I sneak some weird stuff in there sometimes. I think a lot of people know about this one, but like Pictionary on the NES has a really weirdly good soundtrack. There's the deepest cut I have on the playlist, and this is so deep. There is a fishing sonar for the Bandai WonderSwan, and the title screen music for it is amazing. So just feel free to go look that up. It is called the WonderSwan Handy Sonar. It's on YouTube. It's very, very good.
I was curious if we'd get a WonderSwan in here. Kelsey on.
Can't help myself.
Yeah. I want to piggyback off of Anna's thing too, because that will finish off my list here, because my last one isn't just the like I went a little more specific because there's one song that to me just gets me so pumped up on that soundtrack, and that's Rivers in the Desert.
Oh
yeah.
Which is,
I have that written down.
Yeah, I mean, it's the final boss. It's basically the big like epic boss thing, but and those are always those are very often very good, but there's just something about it in this one. Again, maybe it's just because it has the momentum and the weight of everything that came before it, building up to it also, in addition to just being a kick-ass song by itself. But man, I don't know that I've ever felt so pumped up in a final boss battle as I did going against that big Grail thing. I think that's when this is playing.
It's interesting because I think it plays instrumentally when you're in Futaba's palace.
Yeah.
I want to say, and then the vocal version comes way later in the game.
Yeah,
and I think that really adds to the energy because it's been teased with the instrumental, and so it's an amazing moment when you finally do hear the lyrics and that chorus just hits so hard. And I think we need to just credit the Japanese soul singer Lin here. She did all the vocals in the game.
Yeah,
she's like the greatest video game. I mean, it's my favorite game soundtrack ever, and her vocals are just really insane. They're really powerful, and she's an amazing singer.
I hope some of this stuff ends up on like karaoke places. Like lots of really good songs in the soundtrack that would be good specifically for karaoke.
Yeah, you'd think so. I wonder. I've been to karaoke in Japan once, and I did not have much success looking up video game songs. Ben likes to give me guff because one song that I did find that I tried to do was Istanbul by They Might Be Giants.
Oh no.
Which he thought maybe was not a great group choice for a mixed group of Americans and Japanese folks, but I don't know. We had fun. Also, I'm terrible at singing, which is another problem with me in karaoke, just in general. So, okay, Thomas, these are the last things on our list. If you have any final big things you want to say, now's the time to do it, or it's just going to be unsaid. No one's going to know the depth of your devotion. So
I have one runner up just because I wanted to throw it in here.
Yeah.
There's a YouTube channel called Designing 4 that did a video on Akechi's dance number in Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight. And it is really amazing, and it sheds a lot of light on Akechi's character, and he like interprets the crap out of it. And it's pretty long. It's like at least 15 minutes, and it's just like breaking down his dance routine in the spin-off game Dancing in Starlight.
Okay. All right. So and that's the thing. What should people search for if they want to find that?
Just search Designing 4. That's the name of the channel, and then just throw Persona in there. I'm pretty sure it'll be the first thing.
All right. That's awesome.
But the last thing I really wanted to highlight was kind of the relationship between the battle, or like the dungeon mechanics versus the life sim mechanics, and how if all you want to do is grind out your stats, you'll make a better character. But also if you just want to grind out like all the relationships, they all have perks that largely affect how the dungeon mechanics work. So some of them will give you like recovery items. Some of them will give you like really interesting like the kid in the arcade gives you like really weird ways to use your gun differently. And like the politician makes it better to negotiate with personas and capture them. And I just love that, like, unlike most RPGs where all the side quests will like net you an item or a level or whatever it is, like it's usually pretty much just here's a bonus thing to make the game easier because you went out of your way to do this thing. And that's what's going on here as well, but they all attack mechanics very differently, and there's like 25 different social links to keep track of, and so it's just crazy that they each managed to pack kind of a different mechanic within that.
Yeah. Well, especially if like I like how that hits players who are playing the game for different reasons, right? If you're the kind of player that's really story and character driven, you're probably advancing those relationships just for the sake of seeing, of seeing each stage of it, seeing the dialogue and the evolution. But if you're a player who's a lot more into the sort of mechanics and the optimization, you get all that stuff, but then you also get that nice little reward at the end. I think that's really smart. The way they interlace all of that stuff is like so many of the, not just battles and the confidants, but I feel like everything is pretty well linked into like a loop that kind of sustains itself.
Yeah.
Where like no matter what you choose to do with your time in that game, you are sort of you are feeding something else. If you're taking time to craft items, then you're feeding the dungeon exploration. If you're reading a book, then you're feeding your stat gain, which then also feeds into how you can like which activities you can do and which confidants you can advance and all that stuff. Everything just feels so like intricately connected there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good one. Kelsey, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's your last chance.
I mean, so I had music up there, but I kind of figured that it was going to be said by someone else. So I have some backup ones, which is I want to talk about a couple of the characters. I think some of the confidants in this game are especially really good. I mean, your party members too, but like I was especially impressed by some of the confidants, like your teacher Kawakami, who's this sort of like guilty, overworked teacher who also moonlights as a maid, and like you learn her entire story throughout requesting her to come be a maid at your house, and it's like a ridiculous story. She's such a good character. I think most people really love Takemi, the like kind of goth doctor that that gives you medicine and stuff. I also think Sojiro, just the owner of the coffee shop, is such an incredible character. I'm a sucker for like good dad characters, but as I think is really common, actually. I think that's something like game designers are catching on to, and they're like, we should write more good dads. Like people like a good dad.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think I teared up at one point in this game, and it was a Sojiro cutscene.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's an archetype that they used. I forget his name, but they used it in Persona 4 also.
Yeah.
Also,
like just tired dad trying to do right by his daughter kind of thing. Like that's it works every time. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, because they also that art, like Sojiro specifically, is just kind of has that. Who cares what everyone thinks? We're just going to do like this is what the right thing is. Like the right thing is not a hard thing to figure out kind of guy. I like that. Yeah. You know, I think there was another. Just comparing again to previous games, like I've heard some people say that they don't like the main cast of Persona 5 as much as 4, which is something that I can agree with, but I would say that I think the supporting cast in 5 is the strongest in the series. All of those confidants are so good.
Yeah, I think Persona 3 has the strongest party cast in my opinion, but yeah, I think the strongest confidants is 5. Like there's some that are kind of whatever, but like there's a lot of really good ones.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like when I think about them, I mean the ones that you mentioned, I think about also what's his name? Is it Mishima, the moon? Is he the moon arcana in this one?
Yeah.
Mishima's
such an interesting character. People really love to hate on him, but
oh man, I really liked him. He's got just like the weird overzealous fan thing going, right? Yeah.
he's a very realistic character to me. Like just as like a teenager who's gone through some stuff and like is trying to grasp onto this thing that will make him cool now. I mean, it's just very like a very believable teenager.
His friends are all way cooler than him, and so he's just it's great.
Yeah. He's almost sad just because he's like, he's just this like cartoon sidekick who's never really going to do anything that important himself. I have one confidant I wanted to highlight was the shogi girl. Who kind of teaches you the battle tactics. I like how
I mean, you're fixing a lot of people's relationships with their parents. That's a lot of the game, frankly, especially with the confidant side quests. But I just like how they have this, she's like a savant shogi player, and then you realize it's all fake and everyone's throwing matches, and her mom is kind of a psycho, and there's just a lot packed into that one of like, this almost could be a whole game of just like dealing with your friend who's a fake superstar in something. That
and,
one.
I mean, one interesting thing about her, though, I think it's cool that you bring her up, because if I'm not mistaken, I think that she was initially planned to be one of the Phantom Thieves.
Yeah, she was.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, she was supposed to be one of the playable characters, and then for scope concerns, they had to reduce her to confidant status. But
interesting.
So I think that's probably one reason why her story in particular feels especially detailed in a way that maybe some other confidants don't, is because it's like there was a lot there that they just chose to deliver a different way. But I totally forgot about her. Yeah, that's a great one. I forget her name now.
Hifumi, I think, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We did it.
We got it. Yeah. So and now I think we just have one more list item to go. Anna have we gotten this far into the recording and no one has said your last thing yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like general, I guess, but I feel like it ties in nicely to the confidant conversation, because it was something I didn't realize till just now. I was like, oh yeah, like the confidants are really good in this game. And I think so. One of my favorite things about the game is just like, honestly, the general theme of it. Like, I think Persona 5 is just a really great work of like young adult fiction. And it's like inherently about, these young people encountering and dealing with the cruelty of adults. And so like, I just think that is just very compelling, and something that not many forms of media are like too willing to wade into in such a serious way, in such a direct way. But I was thinking about the confidants, and I was like, oh, well, at least like the kids have like some good adult figures in their life, like it's not completely pessimistic in the sense, but they're like, but when, you do encounter people who are abusing their powers, then like it's up to you, to sort of stick it to them. And I don't know. I just I think like even from the get-go, from like on story with like the gym teacher and how we see all of that play out, it was like shocking to me. I was not expecting this game to address such a serious topic so frankly. And in a way that was like, I just really appreciated it, because it's not the kind of story you get seen like that is told a lot. And it's not the kind of story where you see the young people finding a way to sort of overcome it all the time. And so it's a really, I don't know, it's just, I think that's sort of what's led the game to sort of like stick with me throughout the years.
Yeah. Well, and that Kamoshida story, he's the first palace. They really set the stage of like, okay, everyone, this is going to get kind of dark, and we're going to be dealing with some like thematic stuff that you maybe weren't expecting, and they get that all done there like very, very soon. And I didn't even think about it in terms of being a piece of young adult fiction, but you're totally right, because in addition to the whole like subjugation of youth by parents or by adults, there's also like there's that thematic thread going through the whole game of just like freedom too, right? Like being a prisoner and all of that stuff. I don't know, did that resonate with you guys in the same way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good observation. And I mean, when you said that, my initial thought was like, yeah, you're right. This would make a really good like young adult book series. Like the story works for it.
Yeah, I think one of the kind of speaking of the prison motif is like they really hammer that in, and we haven't even touched on Igor in the Velvet Room and how it kind of inverts that trope and everything. But like, you really do feel this like weight lift off of yourself when you finally kind of get to the finish line, or even just the end of each palace. Like you're like, oh yeah. And it really puts you there and makes you angry for these characters that these things are happening to them. And I just, with the one that really sticks out to me right now, for some reason, even though it's one of the worst ones, is Kaneshiro, the mafia guy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's just so despicable, and nobody seems to like him. Like most of the palace leaders, I feel like, have minions that at least kiss ass, you know, but with him it's like, oh, everyone in this whole city just despises this guy because he's ruining everything. And I also love mafia stories, so when you take him down, it's just like really satisfying. And his palace is not fun, so it's nice to get it behind you.
Yeah, there may be a few of those in there. Does anyone have any quickfire last things they wanted to just throw out there before we wrap things up? What didn't we hit that at least needs like an honorable mention?
There's this amazing track that plays when your confidence personas evolve. So like when your party members, when their own personas evolve, and it's just this guitar piece. I have the name of it right here. I forget what it was. It's one of those names that like feels totally bizarre. It's something, Swear to My Bones. The real piece is about, the piece that really hits hard is like 50 seconds into that track. But every time it plays, I just was like overwhelmed with emotion because like we keep saying, the music is just amazing.
Yeah. I wanted to call out, I didn't mention this when Anna was talking about the stylish presentation earlier, but I would just sit and watch the opening animation for this. And this was the original version. They changed it for Royal. They're both very good, but the original one, I would just sit and watch that over and over again. The combination of the song behind it is amazing, but just, they have this scene where everyone's kind of like ice skating down the freeway in a way. I can't describe it. I would say look up original Persona 5 intro if you're interested in checking it out. It is really cool.
And on the same like stylistic note, something I really appreciate about the Persona games, at least for the last 3, is like they all have a very clear color motif that they're going for, that they stick to very well, and I think it works really well. So Persona 3, it was like blue, and in Persona 4 it's yellow, and in this one it's red, and like they stick really well to that, and I think it makes it stand out among other games.
And those are the 3 colors you can play mementos in Smash Ultimate.
Oh,
really?
It changes color. Yeah, it's either red, blue, or yellow.
Does it change with is the music match those
I think
as well?
It is based on which. I want to say yes. I think it is based on if it's a Persona 3, 4, or 5 song. That's
a nice touch. I like that.
Interesting. All right, Anna, do you have any closing thoughts? Final things you want to send people away with about Persona 5?
I don't think so. I think we hit it.
She doesn't like Morgana.
Yeah,
Let me reiterate my hate for that stupid cat and everyone who likes it, or him. Yeah. No, okay.
We can call Morgana it. I think it's fine.
I don't know. Morgana turns into a dreamy boy, so
yeah,
it's pretty clear.
Yeah, but Morgana's a stuffed animal. Morgana lives on as a mascot on people's desks.
Morgana also turns into a van, and I don't think vans are gendered. So we can leave it there. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chatting about just one of the greatest RPGs ever made. And I'm glad we could sit and enthuse about it for a little bit. Thomas, thank you so much for choosing this game and championing it.
A lot of fun
to give us this opportunity, and thank you for joining us here. What do you think? Did we disappoint you?
Well, we never really got into Akechi, which I think a lot of people will be disappointed with, because he's the fan favorite character, and he's completely different in the 2 versions of the game. So perspectives will be different.
On a personal note, it's probably good we didn't get into Akechi, because I think my brain would have just like have been set on fire. Because like anytime I start to think about Akechi, I'm just like my brain worms activate, and it's like I can't form a coherent thoughts.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Other than that, no, this was a ton of fun. It was nice to meet you all in this way. And yeah, no, I was honored to be here and really happy with the MinnMax community for voting such an amazing game to the top.
There you have it. Thanks so much for voting for Persona 5. Thanks everyone for talking about Persona 5. And we'll see you next time when we talk about Persona 6. All right. See you around.
Videos like this are possible because MinnMax is a completely independent outlet for games supported solely by the community. The only reason we don't have to create condescending clickbait is because folks like you click on the subscribe button or check out the benefits over on patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. We think that we're the most efficient gaming outlet out there, so please take a look at what we've done and imagine what more we can do with your support.